Here we go. I'd like to welcome everyone to WeCo's webinar learning series. And I'd like to turn everything over now to our lead accessibility specialist, Jen Hurst.
Thank you, Lynn. Next slide, please.
That's me.
Thank you, Lynn. So, hi, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Creating Accessible Website Content by Digital Accessibility by WeCo. This webinar is designed to help you think about your website content and how to make sure it's accessible to everyone. The information found in this presentation does include tips based upon the experiences and opinions of Digital Accessibility by WeCo staff, and it should not be construed as legal advice. Regarding the development and implementation of digital accessibility practices, it's advisable to seek the advice of qualified legal counsel. The information in this presentation is the property of the Wehrman Collaborative LLC. Please be sure to ask us before distributing any of this information. You can do so by contacting us at accessinfo@theweco.com. As an accessibility note, today's presentation does include audio description for any non-visual users as a part of the narration. And this slide shows the title of the presentation, and it includes WeCo's logo, as well as the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, or IAAP, member logo. And the WeCo logo is also repeated on most of the slides in today's presentation. Next slide. Instructors today are Lynn Wehrman. She's the founder and president of Digital Accessibility by WeCo, and myself, Jen Hurst. As Lynn mentioned, I am lead accessibility specialist here at WeCo, and this slide includes photos of Lynn and myself. Next slide, please. So first, a little bit about who we are. WeCo is a company of digital accessibility professionals with a mission. That mission is to put you in touch with subject matter experts, or SMEs, who live with disabilities. We are members of the International Association of Accessibility Professionals and provide our own rigorous training requirements for our people. This slide includes the IAAP logo and also shows a WeCo accessibility specialist using screen magnification software during an accessibility audit, along with the words, "Because simulations can't replace human experience." So WeCo, we offer manual accessibility audit services. They can help your team understand which areas of your project might not meet accessibility requirements. We can also provide customized recommendations on how to fix those issues. And our testing and recommendations are based on the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, also known as WCAG. We also offer usability testing services, which provide keen insights into how our testers who live with disabilities view your project. And we do that by having them complete tests to verify that your website or software truly works for users who live with disabilities. All WeCo testers live with one or more disabilities that fall within at least one of the 4 primary disability groups, which are cognitive, mobility, hearing, and sight. WeCo also offers various consulting packages and training options on all kinds of topics relating to both accessibility and usability. And finally, our new WeCollege e-learning portal provides on-demand accessibility training courses for both individuals and enterprises. And on this slide, we have a photo of hands resting on a Braille laptop. It's a little bit of housekeeping before we really get into today's webinar. First, we ask you please keep yourself muted throughout the presentation. If you do have any general comments or questions that you'd like to share during the presentation, you can use the Zoom chat box and make sure the everyone option is selected. However, if you need technical assistance, you can also use the Zoom chat, but make sure the message is being sent directly to WeCo moderator. And a recording of this webinar will be made available following our presentation. On the slide, we have a photo of people gathered around a laptop to be a part of a video call.
Okay, thank you, Jen. Let me just get my slides situated here. So we're going to start out today by just framing the topic. What is web content? It's anything that can appear on a digital screen. So what that refers to, of course, is text and images, but it also refers to other elements that we may not think about, such as tables, videos, which may include captions, transcripts, audio descriptions, page titles, text that describes images, text of for labels of links, form elements such as text fields, buttons, drop-down boxes, check boxes, etc. When you start to think about it, it's a lot of stuff. So clear, concise content is essential for individuals who live with a wide range of disabilities. On this slide, we are showing a screenshot of one of our own website pages with showing different types of content. And I think we have fairly simple web pages on our website, which you'll learn why as we progress through this webinar. But it also shows, links are important, what we're labeling those links, the images, the search boxes, all of those elements that even in a simple web page, there can be a lot to take in. But before we begin, I think it's really important to understand why accessible content is important. Content is something that each of us encounters differently, depending upon many factors like our own personal perceptions. But for those of us who live with disabilities, how we perceive content varies depending upon what our disability is and how it plays out in our digital interactions. That said, it's easy for us to view digital accessibility as a process that's tied entirely to code. So coding a web page for assistive devices such as screen readers so that they can navigate more easily. But what if you live with a disability that doesn't use a specific device, or you use a device that depends upon well-structured content? So think about users who may live with cognitive disabilities. I'm one such of those individuals, or users who have who need a well-tuned search box or organized information so they can find what they need. For these users, content that is designed for accessibility can be extremely important. In fact, accessible content touches all of your users and even those who don't live with disabilities. This makes it one of the most important tools that you can have to foster accessibility for everyone in your projects. To understand this concept, think about content as one part of three basic functions. These may not be all the ways and reasons your users depend upon your content, but they're key ways that users with disabilities find accessible content to be vital. First is comprehension. This means that understanding the message that your web page is trying to deliver. Comprehension is tied closely to writing, but layout and graphic choices also play a part. Next is navigation, being able to move through a website without distractions, having one page feel the same as another so that the experience is cohesive for the user. Third is searchability. Search boxes are extremely important tools for people who are blind or who live with cognitive disabilities or who may have limited fine motor skills, may have difficulty using a mouse, for example. Providing searchability is one of the surest ways to make your content accessible to these individuals. This slide shows a photo of a person seated on a floor while using a laptop. Back to you, Jen.
Thank you, Lynn. So how do we measure accessibility? Today we're focusing on, as we mentioned, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG. WCAG were created by the World Wide Web Consortium, also known as W3C for short. The W3C is a group of digital professionals, and they're seeking to make the web more accessible to people who live with disabilities. WCAG is a list of widely accepted and highly reliable guidelines that can help users construct accessible digital projects like websites by using testable success criteria. The WCAG has been applied to accessibility laws across the world, including Section 508 in the United States. So for each guideline, there are, as mentioned, testable success criteria. And each criterion is given one of 3 levels of conformance: level A, level AA, or level AAA. And the higher the level, the more inclusive the conformance. So next we're going to cover some of the WCAG criteria that guide us to create accessible content. So accessible content really does boil down to 3 main priorities, and following these priorities is going to help you create content that your audience can access easily, regardless of their ability level. First is using built-in accessibility elements. So HTML is the standard markup language that's used for creating web pages. It includes native elements that are used to tell browsers how to display content, and does so by differentiating the types of content. For example, headings, paragraphs, links, form fields, etc. Whenever possible, these native HTML elements should be used instead of creating custom elements. The native elements are built into the code already, and they contain the identification for accessibility already. So this means if you're creating new custom elements, such as a form you've designed yourself, you'll have to go back in and build the accessibility features into that new form yourself. Next up is knowing your audience. Understanding who you are writing and designing for, as well as their relationship to the information you're presenting, will allow you to write content that they can understand. And this is what makes it accessible. For instance, if your audience is the general public, you might need to break down any technical terms into layman's language, as opposed to when you're writing for a professional group who already speaks the language. And third priority, keep it simple. Taking a simplified approach to how you are writing and including graphics allows the information to shine through and not be overshadowed by too much information or other distractions like moving graphics. This slide shows an image of hands resting on and writing in a notebook. So for the purposes of this webinar today, we're going to be focusing on 5 main types of content, and those are titles, headings, text, links, and images. As Lynn mentioned earlier, these are not all of the types of contents that exist, but they will give you a running start. And the concepts we'll be sharing may also carry over to other types of content that have accessibility needs. So first, we're going to look at the types of content that include writing, and those are titles, headings, text, and links. So first up, page titles. Page titles, you can find them on the web browser tabs, and they are a user's introduction to the content. These page titles should tell the user where they are on a website and what type of content they will be encountering on that page. Because of this fact, page titles need to be understandable, helpful, and clear. This is especially helpful for users of screen readers, since the page titles are announced when the browser window or tab is given focus. After encountering an understandable page title, the user can more effectively navigate through the rest of the page. One useful format for writing page titles is to have the page name, and then a dash, and then the website name. You can also use the pipe character instead of the dash. In the case of the example from our own website, which is shown on the left side of the slide, we've chosen to describe who we are in a short sentence: digital experts with disabilities, because that is what our service focuses on. Next up, headings. So a heading is a descriptive phrase. It's used at the top of a paragraph or section of content. And these headings should serve as navigation points for all users, but they are especially crucial for screen reader users. The information that headings provide is also important for users living with a wide variety of cognitive disabilities, such as those who live with memory loss or intellectual disabilities. Similar to page titles, you should ensure that all of your headings are brief, but that they also clearly describe the content that follows them. The example we're showing on the right side of this slide includes a heading 1 from our webpage that describes our accessibility support consulting services. And there's a heading 2 beneath that reads how it works, which leads users to know that below that describes how our services work. So on this slide, we're showing a screenshot of the tax information for individuals webpage on the IRS website. Does anyone have any idea what kind of title would you give this website? And do the headings tell you what you'd want to know on this webpage?
Okay, feel free to pop it into chat.
I'll give you just kind of a minute or two here to think and respond. have one answer saying maybe IRS spelled out fully instead of just the acronym for the title. All right, we'll go ahead and continue. So in this case, the actual page title for this page is Individuals, and then the pipe character, followed by Internal Revenue Service. So in this case, the title is clear and concise and definitely lets users know the content of the page and what website they are on. In the very short headings on the page, Tools, File, and Pay, they're a concise way of telling users that the links below those headings will allow them to complete the actions that the headings describe. So a little bit more about headings. Heading levels should always be used in a logical sequence, meaning heading 1 followed by heading 2 followed by heading 3, etc. And heading levels should never be skipped. So this means that users who depend upon software that detects heading levels will encounter the information in a sequence that makes sense. On this slide, we've included a diagram of properly nested headings that do not skip any levels. Next up, we'll talk a little bit about links. So links must be labeled clearly so that users will know the purpose from the link text alone, or from both the link text and its context, such as surrounding text, list item, any previous heading, or table headers. For example, screen reader users can access a list of all links on a given page so that they can hopefully quickly locate the link they need. However, a link with the text "click here" means very little to these users in a link search. A good general rule to follow is to make the link text the same as the title of the page or the document that it links to. Also, be sure to specify the file type in the link text if the link will open a document. This will let the users know which software program would be needed to view the file. To avoid confusion, you should also make sure that any links with the same label do not lead to different destinations. And the opposite, make sure that links with different labels don't lead to the same destination. This will help avoid confusion for your users. And on this slide, we have a screenshot of part of one of WeCo's web pages. It includes 2 text links, the first reading the WeCo blog, and the second, Accessible Startups Digital Inclusion Tip Sheet, with PDF in parentheses to let users know it'll open a PDF document. On this slide, we have the following sentence. For more information about the available after-school programs, click here. And the word "here" is a hyperlink. Does anyone see any accessibility issues with this content? Just give it a minute here in case anyone would like to share. Perfect. Mariah says "here" isn't descriptive enough. That is exactly right. Using only the word "here" as the text link is far too vague and doesn't tell users where they're going to end up if they click the link, especially if it's a screen reader user browsing a links list. It would be better to change the sentence to read "more information about the available after-school programs" and make the whole sentence into a link. Back to you, Lynn. Next slide.
All righty. Okay, thanks, Jen. Now we're going to discuss accessible text a little bit more in depth. What do we mean by text? As we stated earlier, just to recap, it's the words on the web page and make up the headings, lines and paragraphs, captions, and a lot more, as Jen demonstrated for us. Again, text is only accessible if the message it seeks to send is understood by users. That's why we've placed a message in a bottle floating in water on this graphic, for a graphic on this slide. To make text accessible, we need simply to look back at the solid writing skills we've learned in composition courses. I'm wondering how many of us were literature or writing majors in college or minors? Is there a raise hand feature in here now? You could always just say yes in chat. Oh, good. All right, thank you. All right. So yeah, one of my favorite classes when I was in college is that we took this, it was called Style. There were only 9 of us in it. And every day of the class, the teacher had written a sentence on the blackboard and we spent a whole hour rewriting it to make sure that it was concise, that it delivered the message in the minimum amount of time. Well, most of us don't have that time for focus, but it is important for us to be able to really think about what is that message and is the audience capable of receiving it? So we do that in a couple of ways. First, again, as we've stated earlier, knowing who the audience is really the most important thing. And that's something that most of us are taught in our writing courses. It helps you determine if you need simpler text with jargon abbreviations that are well defined, or if the users are going to be, the readers will be more comfortable with technical terms and they expect them. So it's equally important to consider your information architecture, or how you organize the information that you're assembling. Reading order and proper heading nesting, again, is very helpful at this. And don't forget to create a page that's visually simple and pleasing as well. Leave white space free of clutter so that the words you've composed shine through. This shouldn't be underestimated, as your words won't get read if the audience feels overwhelmed by visual clutter. This is exceptionally important for those of us who live with cognitive disabilities like I do. It's really, really helpful to everyone, however. So let's take a look at this website, which provides information about a white paper written by Maria Polinsky, professor of linguistics. Contact. My sister actually has a PhD in linguistic anthropology, so that's what gave me the inspiration to look for a linguistic paper. Who do you think this audience should be? Pop it into the chat. And is this good writing given that audience? Why or why not? Thinking about the parameters that we've been discussing. I'm just going to review those responses that are coming in. Okay, thanks, Sheree said research scholars. That's the intended audience. So probably people working in the field of linguistics who are scholars. So given that's the audience, do you think that this is good writing? This is a tough one. And I'd like your opinion. Okay, Neil says it just looks like a block of text. No matter what audience, it should be made easy to read. And Caroline says the audience would presumably already know what a heritage speaker is. Usually there aren't definitions in an abstract. Yep, Shree says it's an abstract, does not provide details. Okay, so that's where knowing the audience is important. And having a sister that has navigated the depths of academia, there are expectations as to what goes into an abstract, as a lot of people in the chat had indicated. So the only thing that I find fault with is that there's some really bad color contrast on this by putting very pale green links on gray. That could be corrected. But I would say that by and large, this is constructed correctly for its audience. So this is just a really good time when we need to bend the rules a little bit to fit what the audience expects. So does everybody get that point? We have instances where these rules cannot be hard and fast, and this is one of those. Okay, so let's take a look at another web page. And this web page is actually one that our company helped work on, called You, Your Own Best Medicine. Who is the audience And what do you think about the text on this page? Who is this audience? Who is this web page attempting to reach? You know what, I'll give you a little more. Yep, individuals seeking healthcare. This was actually constructed by a real cool nonprofit here in Minnesota that was one of the biggest problems that people face medically is when they transfer between medical institutions, like they've been in a hospital and they're transferred to convalescent and nursing home, that their medical records, their medications can sometimes get lost in the shuffle or not interpreted correctly. And this group was doing a self-education campaign to individuals to let them know that you need to track your own stuff and you need to, and it basically said, this is how you bring your records with you to the next facility. This is how you connect doctors so they're talking to each other. You are your own best medicine. Okay, was that helpful? It's actually a super cool website. Okay, and Neil said text is well constructed, easy to read and navigate. Caroline says good use of headings, important that the columns be coded in correct reading order to make sense for screen reader. And I can assure you they are, because we help them write it and set it up. So unless they've changed things since we've been in there. By doing a few simple to-dos isn't the most clear. Okay. All right. There is a video in there, and the to-do is actually a downloadable list that you can take and print and bring with you. It's also electronic, so you can and structured for accessibility, so you can access it with a screen reader. So I think that overall, the point I'm trying to make with this one is that this website has a lot of white space for individuals who are directed to this website, probably by their clinic or their hospital or a social worker or a caregiver, that it lays out the problem, the risk, the solution. It's really, I think, a fine example of good information architecture overall. So we're hoping that this was a positive example for you. Around the video, you know, the blue on blue would not be probably past color contrast, but they've made some changes to this since we've been in there. So that's a good point. Thank you. Okay, next we're going to discuss images as part of accessible content. Visuals are a really important part of accessible content development, even if we can't see them. That's because they serve a wide range of purposes in helping users comprehend content. They may provide context in the writing. They can convey emotion that may be only suggested in text. They can also help explain things that are intangible, such as the expression of triumph on the face of a gold medal Paralympic athlete as they cross the finish line, as shown in this image where we see a Paralympic athlete in a wheelchair crossing a finish line in track and field. Images are excellent teachers for many of us who are visual learners, but they also make our web pages much more interesting. So this is something that I always really try to encourage people, because I know that when I started down the road of development for users with disabilities, when I worked at a state entity, my thought was, we shouldn't have any pictures because people who are blind can't see them. It's not fair. But the truth is that those images really bring to life the text for people who can see them, people who cannot see them. And I think that, learning that is very important. We actually are going to be releasing a course early summer in WeCollege that is accessible visual design that I taught at the Minneapolis College of Art and Design a couple of years ago, about how important visual design is for non-visual users. So that's just one to watch for. We'll be releasing in WeCollege. One way we can identify visual images for non-visual users is by using alternative text tags or alt tags. Alt tags allow you to paint a picture in the mind of your audience. When a web page has images marked with alt tags, non-visual users can hear their screen reader read it out loud to them. So this means that this individual is receiving the same information as people who see the image with their eyes and not just with their minds. Don't underestimate the importance of alt tags to users who live with disabilities. Again, just like I said, everybody values this information regardless of ability or disability. This slide shows a person holding a paintbrush standing in front of a canvas. So let's craft alt text for this video. And that is you and your chat box taken from within a crowd of a concert with a concert stage in the background. We'll give you a minute to think, but once you're done, feel free to share what you came up with and we'll talk about it. So this is an image that appears to be at a rock concert. We're looking over the heads of the crowd towards a stage that is kind of blurred with lighting hanging above, kind of a smoky atmosphere. Okay, Shri, concert audience. How would you write that? Let's say you're going to write a short description alt text. Just put that alt text right into the chat box. We're running short on time, so I'm going to move ahead. Think about this. Audience at concert name. Very good, Mariah. Okay, Naga. A concert full of people, lights above in huge crowd enjoying, stage is blurry. Caroline, in a crowd facing a lit stage, a person with raised arms points above the others' heads. Those are great. So what do you see? Did you see a rock concert? That's what most of us saw. Or perhaps you see exuberant fans in the audience of a rock concert. Or maybe you see complicated technical lighting hanging over a full house at a rock concert with cheering fans, with one with hands raised making a #1 sign. If you couldn't see this picture, which description would you prefer? Would the context of the information that you're looking for change what you want to hear? This is just point to ponder. Example, how would what you want to hear change if this was a photo from your favorite band's last concert on their website, or if it was an advertisement on a ticket website for a rock concert when you're looking for a symphony orchestra concert? So that determines what type of description and how much description you're going to give. If it's on your favorite band's concert page, you're going to want to know more. If it's just in a general advertisement where people may encounter it but may not be that interested, you may want to do less. So it's easy to see the different needs and desires that come into what we want to experience in alt text. And I will tell you, I've done many of these workshops. You're never going to please everybody with alt text. You try to please as many people as you can, but you will never please them all. So that's why keeping audience in mind is important. So we've got some time for questions. We are a small enough group that if you would like to turn on camera or just turn on mic, just announce yourself and go ahead and ask your question. Otherwise, pop it in chat. Give it just a few minutes to gather your thoughts. You're welcome, Naga. While you're formulating questions, I'm going to do the wrap-up slides and then we'll go back to questions. All right. Oh, Caroline, go ahead.
Oh, I just have a question about links and the recommendation that they say the type of document or thing they're going to open in if they open outside of the website. That adds words like to the length of the link. So is that recommended in general or like specifically for things like a resource or a toolkit? Because it would, yeah, just make it longer for a screen reader to hear.
Jen, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, so it will make it a little bit longer, but it's not going to be adding that much to it. Obviously, PDF, you can just say PDF. If it's like a Word document, you could, some people just say the .docx, or you could say Word. Either way, it does add a little bit to it, but it's going to save some frustration because if that's not there, users may believe they're just being led to another web page, and it may end up trying to open a file that they don't have the proper software for, so it could be frustrating for them.
And do you have an example of what that descriptive text might look like? So like for the example you used where you were registering for something, like register for this workshop on a Google form. Like, is that what that would look like? Or how would that sound?
So for a Google form, that actually is a web page, so that one wouldn't count. It's basically anything that's going to need separate software, something outside of your browser to open up. And generally you just put that in parentheses after the actual text link. So you would say, sign up for services and then in parentheses PDF.
Great. Anyone else? Looks like we have something in our chat. Thank you, Neil. Neil says, can you say link is external if you're navigating outside of the web page you're currently on? Jen?
For that, you definitely can. There's also a couple kind of standard icons that will indicate that it's going to open externally. And for that, if you're using one of those icons, you just want to make sure it has the proper alt text, saying something like link opens externally.
Okay. And from Mariah, how would you encourage volunteer web editors for a public school district to prioritize accessibility in their web design? Mariah, are you talking about particular accessibility needs that you would like to reach for first, or are you talking about making an argument to the establishment for prioritizing accessibility? This be about particular accessibility goals, objectives. If it's about just, okay. If it's about accessibility goals, specific items for, okay. Jen, I think you might be a good person to answer this too. I'm thinking I'll start and you finish. The things that I know that we worked on when we started our effort at the state of Minnesota Department of Transportation, and this was longer ago than I care to imagine when no one was doing accessibility. What we tried to do is get people to use the cascading style sheet and not reinvent it, so that heading 1, heading 2, heading 3 were already identified. That's using those built-ins that Jen talked about and not creating your own headings, which are just typed up, bolded, pumped up and called a heading, but they don't register in code for screen readers. So that was one of the first things we did. And we used to really, really harp on people about alt tags. And it was those two basic things were what we started with, just to try to get everybody consistently on board. And it was, we felt, a reasonable goal. Jen, is there anything else you can speak to along that line?
As far as trying to get people to prioritize accessibility when they're designing and building websites, I'm actually going to paste a link in chat to one of our WeCo articles that's talking about how to make a business case for accessibility. It includes some kind of ideas in there that you might be able to use. Mainly, I think the most important one is one that we mentioned in our presentation today about making things accessible makes it better for everyone, you know, not just users with disabilities, but all users. You know, a lot of people think that making things accessible means they can't make things pretty. That is not the case. It's always better to start off making things accessible in the first place rather than experience people who are having accessibility issues and then you then have to go back and fix it. That's about all I've got.
Okay, and we're near the end, so I'm going to have to wrap up. Thanks for the phenomenal questions, everybody. It's really great when you do that. Here's some resources for you. We, of course, have talked about our WeCollege on-demand learning, and that's where you can have more expanded versions of what you're getting in our webinars. If you're interested, you can also just put your information in the chat to Patty, who is our lead client relations specialist here today, or you can just reach us at accessinfo@WeCo, or just go to our webpage, theweco.com, and there is a WeCollege in the navigation bar, and there's a form you can complete there and more information. This slide shows a woman seated on a couch wearing a headset typing on a laptop. If you'd like to explore more of our free accessibility learning tools like this webinar, visit our website resource tab at theweco.com/resources. There you'll find our free accessibility library, which gives you links to things like the WCAG and free tools like color contrast checkers. It also includes an events page, which includes information on all of our upcoming webinars, workshops, meetups, and more. The slide shows a woman with her feet up on a couch while she works on a laptop. WeCo provides you with free and easy ways to stay on top of accessibility through our accessibility blog and email quick tips. A few times each month, you'll be notified of our latest blog entries related to accessibility and how people living with disabilities interact digitally. Our accessibility blog entries cover everything from our own accessibility experiences as testers and specialists who live with disabilities and legislative updates. Our quick tips emails provide you with technical accessibility tips in short email messages to demonstrate ways to keep your website and software accessible. These tools make it easy for you to keep accessibility top of mind and help you remember to implement what you learned today every day. This slide shows an email symbol. Want to thank you for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out to WeCo Client Relations team again at accessinfo@theweco.com, 855-849-5050, extension 1. Thanks for joining us today. We've enjoyed sharing this time with you, and thank you for your efforts to help make the world more accessible.